Facebook, and I'll get to it in a couple of moments. Not only is it going well for West Point, Tom looked to be having a little fun on the Asian continent when he was over at Meydan for the racing. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Anthony. Thank you for having me on.
And we're going to get those black and gold ties for you. I was teasing Tom on social media that they represent West Point, which has very, very prominent silks, and he's out there, him and Terry, and beautiful tie wear, but not the colors of the farm. First question, Tom, how was Meydan? You looked like you had a lot of fun. How was it?
It was really a bucket list type trip, Anthony. It was everything was so spectacular. It was like crescendo. Each day just got better and better, and we were just treated like royalty being over there with Twilight Eclipse. And although the race didn't go our way, I think all the partners that went over, we ended up having a group of about 28 people between Tom Albatrani's staff, the West Point staff, and the partners and guests, and we just were treated spectacular. I would recommend anybody has the opportunity, to go see Dubai, which was amazing, but the level of racing, just to be in the paddock with these 5- and 6-year-old horses that they're almost cartoon characters, snorting fire. I mean, they're just absolutely gorgeous.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's like you have to say at the end of the first date, would you do it again?
I would definitely go back. I don't think I'd ever go back and run in that turf race again.
Right.
As much as I love my horse, and he is my favorite horse, but the quality of the turf racing there is just spectacular.
Right.
If we were to run now again, I think it would probably be on the dirt or in a sprint.
Gotcha. And just so you know, we haven't talked in a long time, but when you set the world record on the turf, I had you on top on the Handicappers Report 18 months ago. But not only the good news out across the pond, the Kentucky Derby, I got to tell you, a lot of us handicappers, I was not one of them though, Tom, were begging and pleading that Commanding Curve got into the starting gate. What was your initial reaction when you found out that there was a stall space for you?
Well, it was a really bittersweet week for us because we thought we had ring weekend in the race, and we thought we were gonna. I really thought, you follow this every year, Anthony. I mean, I thought we would get in. When we only dropped to 23, the final weekend, taking the Derby trial out of the mix, I said, you know what, at 23, and I think we'll get in. And unfortunately, when ring weekend went by the wayside, it was really bittersweet. You doing what we do in the partnership game, you have to give people bad news quite often, and I've had to tell people their horses have gotten hurt. I've had to tell them that they've passed away, and that's horrible. But having to tell somebody they're not in the Kentucky Derby, that was as bad as it gets, and it really took a few days to get over that. Even though the Commanding Curve partners were, ecstatic.
Right.
But for us as a company, it was a little bittersweet. But then the ring weekend partners were great. And then on Wednesday, when we went to the draw and we saw our silks up there on the board, and that was when it hit that, we're in the big dance. And, Dallas Stewart, I know for those of listeners up in the Capital District, they all know Dallas. When he comes to town, he's always a lot of fun, and he's very accessible to the public, and he never lacks for confidence. But he really mapped out a plan for this horse in November when he broke his maiden at Churchill. He says, we're going to run in these 2 races, and if we're good enough, we'll make the Derby. And he felt he made a mistake with Golden Soul the year before, that he didn't have much horse left after the Derby for the rest of the year.
Right.
And granted, these 2 horses are so physically different. I mean, Commanding Curve is a big, strapping, gorgeous animal, and Golden Soul, even though he's a great competitor, he's on the diminutive side.
Right.
And so coming into the Derby with only 2 races under his belt, 3rd off the layoff, and Dallas felt we were sitting on a huge effort, and he told anybody who'd listen that the horse was going to run big. So it was just really pretty spectacular. Obviously, California Chrome lived up to everything we had heard and was really impressive. But our guy, he come running and and I'd like to think that, it was a kind of an oddly run Derby, Anthony. You didn't have the horses like missiles dropping back through the field like you have in some years.
You had no pace to run at.
Exactly. I actually was watching the race. I was right down on the rail watching this, the Jumbotron, and I thought, Gary Contessa's horse, Uncle Si, when I saw Irad got a 47 and change, I went, well, he might be tough to catch, period, But California Chrome, in a 20-horse field or 19-horse field, you don't usually see a horse, sitting third in the pocket, and usually somebody makes a premature move or does something crazy.
Right.
And the race kind of went sort of textbook, and he just angled off and got to the, got out into the 3-path and really had a perfect trip of it and take nothing away. I mean, I'd love to see him show up in Elmont with 2 under his belt, and as a fan of horse racing, to have a shot at the Triple Crown and know that, we're going to have to buy black hats for that week because we're going to try to beat him. That's
right. Tom, now you told people, I mean, you're a horse racing fan. You have a vested interest and an unbelievable moment with Commanding Curve, but you're a veteran race watcher. And tell me, was it to you apparent that you were going to run second, best case scenario, or was there a brief stride or two when you were thinking we can win the Kentucky Derby?
I think where my angle, where I was, and I really was fixated on the screen because I was so low.
Yes.
I never really thought we were going to get him. But Terry and Dallas, who were up above, could see him gobbling up the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely both thought for a split second we had a shot. I followed him, and I thought Sean did an amazing job. Even though he came wide in the stretch, he really hugged the turn, and it was almost like, Anthony, an aqueduct inner move where, how those guys make the move in the middle of the turn and they lose 20 lengths?
Yes.
Ramon Dominguez made a living on those guys. They'd all go wide, and he'd just sit there and then come out of the turn. Well, that's kind of what Sean did. He stayed as tight as he could, and after they got past the crest of the turn, that's when he angled out, and he really saved a lot of ground. And when we started coming, I could see us. I was fixated on us. I thought we were flying. And at the 8th pole, I knew we were going to get second.
Yes.
But I thought California Chrome looked like he was just like coasting.
Yeah, I think that is. I think that's what it was. I'll tell you, Tom, you made a very good observation for somebody in the race. Shows a lot of objectivity. Of all the Kentucky Derbies I've watched, I have about as few notes coming out of this one. I don't know how many camps thought they had excuses, but like you said, a 19-horse field, 47 and change, nobody makes a premature move, nobody goes 45 and change. You watch it, you go, that seemed like an ordinary horse race, which the Kentucky Derby never is an ordinary horse race.
You hit the nail on the head. That's so funny you said that because I said that to somebody. I go, it looked like just a normal race at Aqueduct, except it had 19 horses in it.
And a lot of people at the racetrack. Tom, can you update our audience on Ring Weekend?
Yeah, right now, Terry Finley actually was down in Philadelphia for a meeting yesterday. He's at Fair Hill with Graham. They're going to gallop today again, and I believe Ring is going to work tomorrow morning. And if he goes well, he's had a phenomenal week. So if he comes out of the breeze and Graham is happy with him and he scopes clean, I think we're going to be a go for the Preakness next week.
Okay, and obviously, as you alluded to earlier, you'll be bypassing the Preakness with Commanding Curve, and you're pointing towards the Belmont Stakes, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, they ran 1.25 miles on the dirt at Belmont the other day. The Drosselmeyer Stakes ground transport gets the W.
I tell you what, I thought Johnny Velasquez rode him perfectly. Just put him out there. The distance was a bit of a concern coming in, but Belmont being different, where it's really only a turn and a half, as opposed to a true long 1.25 mile, 2-turn race. Johnny got him out there, and if you leave this horse alone, he gets brave. His last 2 races, they didn't pressure him up front. Earlier in his career, I thought he was a tiny bit of a chicken.
Okay.
And but he really has. He's really done wonders. Mike Stidham's done a great job with him. You know, last year he's on the Derby trail. We go to the Illinois Derby. We're second choice in the Illinois Derby, and he didn't run well. And then he looked like he just was fighting one little malady after another. And you know, Mike just took the shoes off and let the horse let his feet grow out. And you know, he's the son of Big Brown, so he's always going to be a little bit of battle with the feet. But Mike seems to have his number right now, and we're excited. I mean, he reminds me, Anthony, if you remember, we had a horse back in, I think it was like 2004, 2005. We had a horse named Seattle Fitz who got real
Absolutely.
good, and he won the Brooklyn. And this horse reminds me a lot of Seattle Fitz, where he gets out on the lead and he has a high cruising speed. As long as he's not really, really pressured, he gets real brave in the lane. And I think if managed correctly, I think Mike is really, you know, looking at that, for lack of a better term, B circuit of graded stakes races for him. Mm-hmm. And you can make a lot of money with a horse like this.
Absolutely. Well, two things. One is, we all saw John Velasquez's horrible injury at the Breeders' Cup, and, jockeys come back, and it's something. I will say this, the last couple of weeks, maybe a month for John Velasquez, I really think he's gotten back to being dialed in. I think the jockeys are in a tough spot. I think they come back. I think it takes them a while, but I think over the last couple of weeks or a month, I think he's really started to get back to that incredible form he's had. He got Ground Transport home. He won the other day for Other Connections. What are your plans, the plans for Ground Transport? You just won going 1.25 miles in an overnight stakes race at Belmont Park.
Well, I think there's a race at the end of the month. I think it's May 31st at Penn National, a $200,000 race that Mike's looking at. And then I know in the back of his mind he's got to be thinking the Brooklyn as well.
Okay.
And I think it'll just be to see how the horse is doing. If the horse comes out of this and really stays at a high level, it might be the time to take a shot that he might be able to get out on the lead in a 1.5 mile race and relax and get the distance. But the race at Penn National, I believe, is a couple hundred thousand, and I believe he'd probably be a prohibitive favorite there.
All right, another horse to touch on, Awesome Vision. He'll be going pretty soon, perhaps. Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna take a swing with Awesome Vision. He's been a wonderful horse for the stable. We bought him as a yearling. Awesome, again, in general, has kind of been one of the staples of the West Point thoroughbreds, with Awesome Gem and now to have Awesome Vision. He's really been a wonderful New York bred horse, made us a lot of money. We were going to run against, I think there was the last week of Aqueduct, there was a money allowance race that Zevo won. And, we've been banging heads against him and Commandante and, all the horses that run in that, either three. I think we have no conditions left but the overnight stakes or these money allowances. And we wanted. He's got a nice pedigree, and we wanted to give him a shot stretching out. And he hasn't really been fond of Belmont.
Okay.
He seems like he runs his best races at Aqueduct going 2 turns, and Saratoga going 2 turns. Mm-hmm. So the thought was we skipped the Drosselmeyer. We didn't think there was any pace in the Drosselmeyer, and it turned out we were right because Ground Transport wired the field. And we're gonna send him down to the Grade 3 Pimlico Special, which I know it's 300,000 and it's going to be a tough field, but as long as there's some hitting in front of him, Anthony, he always has a puncher's chance down the lane.
And Tom, you can tell folks, usually it's had some historical problems, the Pimlico Special, but it comes up usually in its, I think, third revival, a little bit tougher than many Grade 3 races.
Absolutely. And,
go ahead.
But, we just think that this might be the right time to take a shot with him and see if the distance works for him. If he has that kind of caliber, we'd love to get him a stakes win and maybe make a stallion out of him.
Right.
But I think it's the right time. We'll take a shot, and if he were to run well, then I know the Brooklyn would be on our radar because that's his home track.
Okay. One quick question, just West Point Thoroughbred. Is Awesome Gem the high water mark in earnings?
I believe yes, he is. He is. I believe it was like 2.9 million or something. And
I thought it was entered last week. No, Awesome, I make that funny because, boy, I'll tell you, Awesome Gem, a throwback. He danced a lot of dances for you guys. He didn't need his own racetrack. And what do you say, got just under $3 million?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I thought you might know something I didn't. Because when
No.
I was out at the Breeders' Cup, Craig DeLacy was like, listen, he really looks good.
Oh.
You know, I'm like, Craig, enough, buddy.
Yeah.
But
No, what I liked about him was that, it's as we know, Tom's a big horse racing fan. He's not late to the game. That, stakes horses run so infrequently, and he wasn't that type. He was the type of handicap horse that I grew up with, that you could depend on seeing him in the entry box, and he would run well, he would ship well, and he was an easy horse to root for. I mean, it's impossible not to root against. He kept doing well for you guys.
He ran 52 times in his career, and ironically, he didn't make the races till he was a 3-year-old, but after that, he ran 46 of his races after the age of 3.
Which is unbelievable. And I mean, I can't even imagine, without hitting Equibase, how many stakes races he closed out his career in a row. And I'm also thinking he probably was one of the early crops of Awesome Again.
Yes.
I mean, he could have only been maybe the third crop. And folks, if you're the third crop, the owners don't have data on the first 2 crops because the first crop is just starting to run as babies. So you guys did a good job getting on Awesome Again and right away an Awesome Vision. So things are good in the Bellhouse house?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's. I just had a birthday, and my
I
sisters
saw it.
from Chicago just sent me a thing, and it said it had a bucket list item.
Yes.
And they made a bucket list for me, and they said go to Dubai and ride a camel, check. Run second in the Kentucky Derby, check. So things are pretty good with Tom Bellhouse these days.
Yeah, I got about 10 months on you, but Tom was the big 5-0 recently and having a great spring. Tom, it's good talking to you. We'll see you personally really soon. Best of luck. Congratulations on a tremendous job. Like I said, a lot of the people that follow the game as closely as you and I follow it were really anxious for Commanding Curve to get in because they felt just like Dallas Stewart and your group felt that if he could get in, he wasn't going to disappoint. I've got to tell you something. I was actually surprised at how big a price he was in the 40s because, as I said, a lot of people I know, it was one of those cases, just get in the race and you'll run well, and you did. You ran a very, very good second to a good Kentucky Derby winner. So continued success. Hopefully you get good news out of Fairhill today, and we can look forward to Ring Weekend in the Preakness Stakes, and hopefully all continues to go with Commanding Curve, and we can see him at the Belmont Stakes for you.
Thanks so much, Anthony. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Tom Bellhouse, ladies and gentlemen, West Point Thoroughbreds, one of the sport's good guys, known him for a lot of years. Just one of those guys who, you go to the track and you find out one